Hello and welcome to Agatha Christie They Watched. This is Bill Peschel. Hi, there we are again.
And I'm Teresa Peschel, and as you can tell by the rather different background, we're not at home in Bill's little office underneath the stairs, and you probably heard that wildly inappropriate music, but it is correct because we're in Ocean City, Maryland. Let me be specific because some people think there are other ocean cities, and there are not. There's only Ocean City, Maryland. And we're taking a week-long writer's retreat. And what we're actually doing is we are recording this early because we have limited primitive facilities in our Verbo, despite having a full frontal ocean view. But we have limited primitive facilities, and so we are pre-recording this, so you can't ask any questions. And then Bill will upload it at 11:30, and if you are one of the people who show up at a later date, well, everything is recorded. And, it's all there and waiting just like always. And hopefully this will work.
Hopefully we're going to be switching away.
We
have all kinds of problems here. We've switched away and come back, and the camera goes blank. And I don't know, maybe if you don't see us again, we'll just keep showing images. We got a lot of images from this show, which is the 1973 play Black Coffee on West German television. Remember, not Germany, West Germany, back in the days when the Berlin Wall was a thing.
Yes, and they took the play. This follows the play very closely. I have never actually seen the actual play, and if you're lucky enough to have the play at like in your local dinner theater, you do want to go and see it.
This was a play she wrote in 1930?
Yes, she wrote this in 1930. I think I've got my dates right here. And yes, and I know about this because I am basing what I'm looking at on Charles Osborne's novelization of Black Coffee that he novelized some years back with the permission of the estate. And you can tell it is a novelized play, and he was an actor, and Charles Osborne did perform in Black Coffee, so I can't imagine that between his background of knowing the play and the estate that he changed very much at all. So I think if you can't see the play, this will give you a pretty good idea of what the play is like. So I base my reviews on the play.
Yeah, just don't mistake that for an Agatha Christie novel, because Charles Osborne basically just took the play and didn't do much in the way of narrative changes to it. And, the estate's looking over his shoulder, and they're not going to allow him to run wild with it.
Yeah, they did not want him to run wild. And I guess in a way it was the estate looking into how could we bring more Agatha Christie intellectual property to the public, and how can we possibly, somebody may have already been thinking about this, how can we find someone to continue writing Hercule Poirot novels? And there may be, I have no idea, I'm just purely speculating, but there may be a direct line between Charles Osborne novelizing the plays and Sophie Hannah writing brand new Hercule Poirot novels. And I have to say this again because I don't know who sees what, but watching this, and the West Germans were very faithful to the text. This belongs to category 1, fidelity to text. I mean, even the names, everything was as faithful as they could make it, other than making it considerably shorter. They shortened a lot of speeches. They removed one long scene where Caroline is playing with the yarn and irritating Corelli to no end. And you almost get the impression, I got the impression, that Poirot had asked her to do this, but you don't see it happening on stage because she is totally oblivious. She's a charming, scatterbrained older woman, and yet there's something...
Is this Aunt Caroline?
Yeah, this is Aunt Caroline. Oh, there she is. There's Aunt Caroline, looking beautifully dressed. But they removed a lot of these scenes, and so what should be a 2 to 2.5 hour play is an hour and 10 minutes. They removed many of Aunt Caroline's monologues. They removed Barbara's speeches, especially Barbara being super flirtatious. That's Barbara being super flirtatious with Hastings. Hastings is in the middle. And yes, and at a later point in the film, you get to see Hastings and Barbara kissing passionately in the garden. And the one oddity about this is that Agatha wrote this in 1930. And so you already had flappers and shorter dresses, and yet everyone is almost dressed, the ladies are all dressed almost in an Edwardian style, and I have no idea why they did that, but that's what they chose to do. Very striking gowns on the ladies. Lucia in particular, I know you have a better scene of Lucia in her flowing, drapey, underwired, fluttering white Gothic heroine gown that puts her off, and the camera lingers on this to put her heaving bosom on full display. And it is just such a lovely, romantic dress.
She could project.
No, there were moments I noticed. But it is, I guess it's Edwardian, and yet it's not really. But then these are German costumes, and the world is, even Europe is not a monolith in terms of fashion. The fashions are subtly different.
Well, the rigid collars actually give you a hint about that, because it was in the Edwardian period where you started seeing a change from stiff collars like that, which were separate pieces of fabric.
Victorian, yeah.
Yeah, Victorian, to the soft collars that, was it like the print, was Bertie using soft? There was somebody who was like fashion forward that was using soft collars for shirts.
Well, I know that Prince Edward, he abdicated to marry the woman he loved. He was wearing he was a huge fashion forward person, but Bertie may have been too. I can't remember.
Yeah, but you can see them. As a matter of fact, there's a little hint of Sherlock Holmes here as they this is their entrance.
Yes, and when you watch this, if you're able to find this on YouTube, and you should go ahead and look for it.
It is available on YouTube. That's where we got it from.
And Bill has it you have it in the show notes?
I have it in last week. We should have in this week's show notes. I'm going to be posting this when I post this. Yeah, it'll be in the show notes.
Coming to Ocean City kind of threw everything up in disarray, and we're really surprised that this is working at all, because Bill has spent the last hour playing with this, trying to make it work. But anyway, when you watch this, even more than when you saw the French version, when we saw the French version, and you have a clip of the French version, even more than when we see the French version.
That's Poirot, by the way.
Yeah, that is Poirot with the glasses. That's Poirot. And there's Hastings. Here, they get Hastings and Poirot right in terms of the actors portraying them. But when you watch this, when Inspector Japp comes on stage, you think, why didn't the Poirot TV series with Suchet do this play? It would have been perfect. And it is the only play that Agatha wrote with Poirot in it. And there is Poirot with Hastings behind him and Treadwell the butler. It is very, very faithful, other than them, like I said, shortening a lot of the monologues. It is so faithful. And I don't know why they didn't film this. This is even odder than them not filling I'm going to say the name wrong, so the Le Mercier inheritance, or not doing, they should have done the Labors of Hercules as a separate season. They really should have. Every single one of those short stories should have been an episode instead of a film, although the film worked pretty well. But this would have been perfect for a TV movie, and it would have even been reasonably cheap to film, because you only see Poirot's apartment, and you see the stage set, and you see a little bit of the terrace where Barbara lures Hastings out to flirt with him madly. It would have been so perfect, but they didn't, and who knows?
Well, the story involves an inventor and his family. They're all there in the house, and the inventor has called in Poirot, but he hasn't shown up at this point because he's basically trapped the family because he invented a formula, and in this case it was called a secret weapon, although he actually says this secret weapon against hair loss, since this is an inventor who invents a lot of things.
Yes, and he has the house set up, and he has Treadwell the butler trained to use these little devices, these weird little devices to open and close doors. So there's Treadwell winding a little winding a little gear handle. Is that
pulling a handle?
Winding? No, he's winding it.
Well,
he's winding up a little handle and sending a signal, I guess, an electric signal to the door, so the door closes on its own
and then
locks.
It opens up. Yes, it locks. So he's locking them all in. And there's also something like a primitive telephone house intercom device as well.
Yes, and this professor, he is. He does all kinds of things, but the formula in question here, and this is a classic trope.
That's Lord Emery.
Yeah, that's Professor Emery. The classic trope is that you have this incredibly valuable formula that is military significance because it's a super high explosive. Think of it as a pre-atomic bomb, something that makes your dynamite 100 times more powerful. And of course, it would be of extreme interest, like submarine plans or bomber plans
naval
plans or hardening steel plans, which we have also seen. It's supremely important, and of course people would want to steal this formula. So that's the setup. You have the professor. He knows that there are problems, and he's in his household, and in his household is Richard Amory. And the versions go back and forth between, is Richard his son or is Richard his nephew? There's Richard's wife, Lucia, she of the underwired flowing gown and heaving bosom, and she is Italian, and she has a secret hidden background, which is very typical for Agatha. There is Richard's either sister or cousin, that is Barbara, and she is a super flirt. She is young and hip and happening, and she drinks cocktails called Satan's Whiskers and scandalizes her Aunt Caroline, who is considerably older and is she actually gets an identification. She is Professor Amory's sister, his spinster sister. And then the other two people in the household are, besides the servants, is Dr. Corelli, who is the uninvited guest. He is very much the uninvited guest. And you can see his suave Italianness, and you know that he's a bad one because he's wearing a cream-colored suit when all the gentlemen are dressed in sedate dark browns and blues and blacks. And then there is the secretary, Edward Rayner. And did you get a picture? You missed the secretary?
I missed the secretary. I'm sorry.
Shocked. I am shocked.
Well,
I am shocked because the secretary is, of course, spoilers here, the secretary turns out to be the villain. And Agatha does what she so often does. She takes a trusted member of the household, which is Edward Rayner, the secretary, and she conceals the trusted member of the household behind the foreigners. And in this case, the foreigner Lucia, who is charming and beautiful, turns out not to be a villain at all. Instead, she is fleeing blackmail and trying to overcome her mother's lurid past. And you also have Dr. Corelli, who in this case is, as it turns out, an evil blackmailer, and he is a criminal, and Jap recognizes him at once, but he would steal the formula. He is doing his best to steal the formula, but he is not a murderer, and he did not succeed in stealing the formula. So he is a very valid red herring, but in the end, that's not who the murderer is. So it is, and that's, well, we'll find out how well this records, because when you were flipping back and forth between the images, the bars would disappear.
Yeah, well, they change from place to place, but we will. I did it. Just trust me, dear. Don't worry about it.
Yes, dear.
Just don't worry your pretty head.
If this doesn't work, it's
fault.
Bill's fault. I am the talent.
It's always my fault when it comes to tech. When it comes to tech, I'm responsible for it. You're not.
When it comes to the tech, you are responsible. I am the talent.
You're just responsible.
I have no idea how any of this works. It might as well be magic. It is magic. This is all magic for me. Mm-hmm. It's the magic of.
I think we got off the dribble here. You're getting like Aunt Caroline here, going crazy. So let's just get back to the story, because anyway, the formula is missing. Poirot has been called in, and we have another trope in which he's going to turn out the lights, and whoever puts the formula on the table, he'll not have Poirot investigate.
Yes, he will just have, Professor Amory will just have Poirot take the formula back to London with him. And the reason why this is very stagey. And it's so that it can be put on, it can be done on a stage, which is very limited in how many people you can have on the stage and how many ways you can change the stage setting. Plays do not have the freedom of racing around from one location to another and a cast of thousands the way a movie does. So last night we saw the producers, the 2005 producers with Matthew Broderick and Nathan Lane, and they went outside to film. And they had a cast of thousands. I mean, literally, they had a cast of thousands, hundreds and hundreds of backup dancers in various sequences, and you can't do that on stage. And so this very artificial, I'm going to turn the lights out, is what works on a stage, but it also allows Professor Amory to... you have to remember today, nobody cares if something is scandalous or not, unless it's the right kind of scandal. But what Professor Amory is trying to do is to avoid scandal. And if his sister, son, daughter, or nephew or niece, daughter-in-law, or that oily Italian professor, that oily Italian doctor stole the formula, he gets the formula back, and he doesn't have to embarrass his family member, and everybody can go on as they were before, and then he can have Poirot do quiet investigations and then cut that person out of his will. And you don't really get the impression that, leave that one up on the screen. You don't really get the impression that he suspects his secretary. I think it's fairly clear that that Professor Amory doesn't suspect his secretary. He kind of suspects his son, who wants money, and there's the subtitling gets in the way. But in the novelization, Caroline talks about how necessary it is for young men like Richard to have money. And Claude Amory keeps his family on a short financial leash so he can keep track of them.
Another Agatha trope seen repeatedly.
Oh, yes, because money is a great controlling device. Now, what we're seeing here is the wonderful medical kit. And it looks really awkward. It's a very nice wooden cabinet, and it's got bandages and stuff in the bottom, and it's got all of the bottles, but it's not what you would see in a real doctor's bag, because everything is rolling around loose when you lift it up from the top of the cabinet and carry it around, and the bottles would get broken. And I know that for a real drug box like this, everything would have been fitted in its own little eggshell compartment so that those expensive glass containers of volatile chemicals would not get broken. I'm not sure whose hand this is in the picture, but they're showing it to somebody.
Yeah, they're showing it off. Lucia has a headache, so they bring this down. They bring it off the top.
Barbara brings it down.
Barbara brings
and
it down,
falls into Hastings' arms.
Well, that's the second time.
Yes,
that's the second time, and they make a big thing about how clean the top of the drug case is. And then later, when Poirot's up there, he discovers how dusty it is, and it's a clue.
It is a clue because. And it's a very logical clue.
Yeah.
Why would the drug case not be caked with dust when everything else up there, the entire top of this tall china cabinet, is caked with dust?
And while they're going through this gives the doctor a chance to point out the various poisons and what they do, even though they're supposed to be looking for headache powder, which is a really weird way of mixing it with 3 different kinds of serious poisons.
Yes, exactly.
Not something we find in our medicine cabinet.
No, probably not. And yet, although if you take too much Tylenol, it will kill you, or you at best you end up in the hospital needing a liver transplant.
Yeah, but one of these, I think it was atropine, and he says 1/4 of a gram and you'll sleep for a long time.
and that was Dr. Corelli, by the way. And even though he is an Italian blackmailer from London, whom Inspector Japp knows very well, in the novelization he says, "Tonio, so nice to see you again." But Tonio is a skillful enough criminal that he spent some time learning something about the drugs. I mean, he really does come across as though he's had some medical training, enough to fool people who are not doctors. And events proceed as you would expect from the.
They serve coffee.
They serve coffee.
We see, is it Lucia or is it Barbara who takes we see her take tablets out.
Lucia takes the tablets because she is under so much stress that she's afraid she's going to be blackmailed and she's going to lose her husband. And boy, she has a lot of underline on her eyeshadow. Look at that.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, she's supposed to be Italian, so they made her as Italian as possible.
Look at those smoky eyes. Yep. That makeup artist did a fabulous job.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can learn how to do that. Anyway.
The lights go out, and there's a big thing about Lord Amory given the right coffee cup.
And yes, and then he complains about the coffee being bitter.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lights come on again. There's various noises in the dark, and I can see this would be very effective on the stage.
Yeah,
you only see the light in the fireplace, and then the lights come back on again. They're all locked in this room, and Professor Amory is dead. And then moments later, Poirot arrives because he came on the 8:30 train. And a household servant who you actually see in this adaptation. The coachman is sent out,
right.
And he delivers Poirot to arrive exactly at 9, and Treadwell opens the doors, and Poirot and Hastings walk in, and they discover that Professor Amory is dead. And it doesn't take Poirot long to say, this is interesting. This seems like murder. And here he is trying to break Lord Amory's neck, I guess to see if he's... maybe to get an idea of how long the body has been dead, because he wouldn't even be cool.
Well, he wouldn't even be cool. That's not necessary because rigor mortis does not set in minutes. It takes a lot longer for that to happen. But anyway, Lord Amory's dead, and now we have to find out who done it.
And you have Lucia. You have several suspects. You have Lucia, who is set up as being very guilty because she obviously has a guilty secret. She's being blackmailed. This is where the AI translation got, her husband thinks she's having an affair with Corelli. This is where the AI translation went bad because when they're talking about her brilliant something or other, I can't remember the word the AI subtitling used, they mean her diamonds. And AI subtitling, it really needs a human being to come afterwards and clean it up, no question. But Richard is sure that he loves her madly. I mean, why wouldn't he? She's gorgeous. And he's afraid that she's cheating on him, and he has no idea what's going on, and he's broke, and he has this beautiful Italian butterfly that he wants to hang on to, and he will do anything for her. And he's afraid that she murdered his father, and she's afraid because she knows that he is broke, that he murdered his father in order to get the inheritance to get her out of there. They're both worried that each other did it. The rest of the household thinks that Corelli did it because he's an oily Italian doctor and a stranger to the household. And this is really important because if he's a stranger to the household, then no one in the household family can be guilty. And Agatha uses this a lot. Think of Ordeal by Innocence. The family would so much rather think that it was an unknown tramp coming in rather than one of us, one of them, one of us. And Corelli makes the perfect suspect. Even more perfect than Lucia, because he's not married in, he's not related to anybody, he's not young and pretty. He makes people uncomfortable. In the novel, Treadwell does not like him. Caroline does not like him. Basically, everyone who's there says he kind of pushed his way in, and Lucia, they don't think she wanted him there. If I'm remembering correctly, she didn't want him there, but she accepted it because it was polite, but she didn't want it. And it would be perfect if Corelli is the villain. He's not one of them. And that might be what Professor Amory is thinking too, with that theatrics of I'll turn the lights out and then the formula better be on the table when Treadwell turns the lights back on. But of course, that's not what happened. And then you have all of the sequence of Poirot making investigations, looking at the dust, thinking about who was logical. And he has unfortunately, they cut a really wonderful scene in the novel where Caroline is keeping Corelli busy in the library. She is knitting and she is dropping the ball of yarn and he's having to pick it up, and she's twittering on like classic old maids, and he is getting angrier and angrier, and they cut that whole scene just like they cut most of Barbara's scenes where she is being flirtatious and young and fun, and Caroline even says at one point that Richard and Lucia and Barbara shouldn't be in that fusty, dusty old house. They should be off having fun like young people should be having fun. And, Poirot is investigating, so he has this obvious suspect with Corelli. He has to figure out who Lucia is and why she's being blackmailed, and he recognizes her. And, of course, he has to think about who would have had the opportunity to take down that case of poisons and pharmaceuticals. And it has to be someone who can move in and out of the house at will without anyone noticing. And if it isn't one of the servants, and I think Professor Amory actually tells him in the opening chapters that he has utter faith in Treadwell and the other household servants. Professor Amory knows it's a member of the family, the immediate family, the immediate staff, which would be his secretary. Although I really don't think he thinks it's the secretary. He doesn't think it's the secretary, and there's Corelli, and then so there's Poirot, thinking, okay, why is this dust free? Somebody had to do this. Somebody had to know, but who could it be? And then you come back to the most logical suspect, which is the secretary, because he knows exactly what he's got in his hands. Secretaries are underpaid and overworked and always need money. And as he tells Hastings, and I don't think this made it into this did not make it into the play. Rayner knew that Professor Amory did not always go into his safe on a daily basis. He depended on his secretary to do it. And so having Corelli in the house was convenient for Rayner because if anything happened, it gave an immediate suspect if somebody remembered, hey, where's the formula? But then Professor Amory, and he already had it all planned that he was going to poison the professor that night, and then it turns out that the professor opened the safe when he wasn't supposed to and discovered that the formula was missing. And so Rayner was kind of under the gun. He had to do it. He had good suspects right there, so he went ahead and did it. But under normal circumstances, Professor Amory would have never known that the formula had been stolen. They wouldn't have had that charade in the library where they turn out the lights, and instead, Professor Amory would have died. Everyone would have thought it was a heart attack, and he would have the formula just would have been lost in the papers, and nobody would have gone looking for it. The will would have been read, and then 2 months later, when Secretary Rayner had finished winding up all of the affairs, he would take the formula tucked into his pocket, and he would go off and sell it for £50,000, and no one would ever know. But events didn't work out that way for him.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've been going for almost a half hour, so let's wrap it up then. What would you rate this?
For fidelity to text, I would say 4 to 4.5 poison bottles. Everything worked. It worked exactly, even though they really could have done more they had the time. An hour and 10 minutes is nothing. They could have spent another 20 minutes and given us Carolyn's long, quite funny scene with the ball of yarn and her knitting and Corelli or Barbara being flirtatious and discussing cocktails and all kinds of other things like that. They also skipped all of Caroline twittering on about B-Max vitamins too. Mm-hmm. All of this stuff that they cut. They could have put it all in. But everything that's there, with the possible exception of the carriage driver going to pick up Poirot right out of the novel, I recognized lines in the translation from the novelization. For the film itself, it felt a little bit rushed, I think, again, because they did so much cutting to fit it all into an hour and 10 minutes. But it worked. Every part of it worked. You even got the little scene with Lucia's maid, Victoria, that, oh no, my maid is not blackmailing me, and my maid, my Italian maid is not blackmailing, and she is not stealing formulas or she's a good girl. She's a good lady's maid. You even get that little tiny bit. So,
Okay.
3.5. I wish it should have been longer.
Yeah.
They cut too much out.
Yeah. All right. Well, then what are we going to be doing next week?
We are going to watching, and no, that is not Meryl Streep. We are going to watch the Italian version of Black Coffee from 1985. It will probably have the same subtitling issues. I don't know how closely they follow the text, but if it is like, damn, I hate it when I blank out like this, but it's probably going to be fairly close to the text if they're doing the play.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know who that is in the picture. She looks too old to be Lucia, but she looks too styling to be Aunt Caroline. She looks too stylish to be Aunt Caroline.
This is Italian.
But this is Italian, so who knows?
Who knows?
And boy, she looks like Meryl Streep. But anyway, yes, we are pre-recording this. This was all pre-recorded, so we hope it all worked when Bill uploads it. And
next week we'll be back with a live stream.
Yes, next week we'll be back with a real live stream where you can ask questions about the film, and you can ask questions about Ocean City, and we're having a lovely time. And Ocean City in the off season is the way to go. If you're not a party animal, you just want to have quiet time. The city is deserted.
The city is your own. We just had to put up with fire alarm tests on Wednesday.
Oh my God.
Which is what the building needed to do.
Yes.
And we lost 2 days because they were repainting the outside hallways and they couldn't allow foot traffic. So we lost 2 days of our 8-day vacation, but we're still here.
We're
just going to have a good time.
And we're having a good time. And yes, please, I will remember to say this. Remember, please like and
like, share, and subscribe.
And share. And if you like this, share it with your friends. And remember, you can follow us on Instagram or the YouTube channel. And we would appreciate that if you shared us with other people so other people could find us.
Yeah.
And I think that's
about it.
Everything.
And thank you very much
Thanks
for
so much.
And we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week back at home.
Yes. Bye-bye.